Woo-hoo. Hey, what's up, YouTube? Welcome to Play It Painted Live. It is time to start our show, as we always are. And I'm going to wait for this thing to come on so I can hit mute. So we'll give it, there it goes. There we go, good. I always have to do that so that I can pull up the comment section. And I can view the comment section while ding. So let's jump right into it. Tonight is I don't have anybody scheduled to be on tonight, so this is just going to be kind of a regular painting night for us, and I'm going to go over what I'm painting, and then we're just going to talk pretty much about anything you guys want to talk about. So if you hop on, you have a question for me, then fantastic. I'll see what I can do to answer it, and we'll talk about just kind of. Do I have enough water to paint tonight? It looks like I do. So we'll get that ready. All right, but let's go ahead and talk about news. Okay, so first up, we've got another slew of events rolling through Southern California. If you haven't checked it out yet, check out Strategicon GameX. That's going to be next weekend, Memorial Day weekend. At the LAX Hilton in Los Angeles. We are going to be running some Guild Ball events there. David Blood is going to be doing a demo night, Friday night, starting at 6 p.m. And I will be in and out of that event, mainly because I'm going to be selling stuff. I'm going to be selling stuff around 8 p.m. At the flea market tables there. So I'll be around and then probably catch some late night games on Friday. Or you could actually try to catch something with me earlier, actually be better. If you just want like a pickup game or something, I will be totally down for that. On Saturday, we have the prestigious first ever Guild Ball Pip Cup. This is going to be a Guild Ball tournament. We don't know how many people are in the Guild Ball tournament. I don't know what the registration looks like. I don't think it's going to be a sold-out event, so if you are planning on going, you have a good shot of just showing up that day, signing up for the tournament, and playing. So this is not going to be a sanctioned event, unfortunately, but it will be a really cool tournament with some cool, and I can say this, custom prizes, custom Play It Painted themed prizes. Looking forward to that. Okay. In addition, if you're in the San Diego area, At Ease is running their big league this summer. You're going to want to check that out with David Blood. I don't know what days they run that. It's probably Sunday, given that that's his regular Guild Ball day. And then if you're here in Orange County, I'm going to be doing some more Guild Ball Thursdays at Comic Quest and or Friday nights, late night at Recursed Hobby. So you're going to want to check out all this stuff. Lots of Guild Ball going on over the summer. And boy, do we have one more announcement for you guys that watch this show. Got notified today by Steamforged Games that they were impressed with our showing at Kingdom Con. And indeed, we will be hosting the U.S. West World Championship. Sorry, the U.S. West National Championship for Guild Ball next year at Kingdom Con. This is a big deal. So every country in the world gets one Guild Ball, National Guild Ball Championship. The United States gets two. They're going to have the U.S. East Championship at Adepticon, and the U.S. West Championship will be at Kingdom Con, which is that's an amazing. It's amazing. It's quite an honor for us here at SoCal Guild Ball, and it's really cool to be part of the ground floor of this. So, information comes out about this event. Stay tuned, SoCal, and other folks who may be wanting to travel to SoCal now that there is a championship at stake. You may want to check that out. Okay, so that's it for news. Please check out the Guild Ball events. It's going to be super fun. And then, once again, hit me up for games locally. Always looking to play more Guild Ball. All right. So here's some stuff that I've been messing around with, and it doesn't look great. here's what I've been playing with. Actually, it doesn't, but you know, I'm gonna have to clean these up a little bit. So I've been playing with some Happy Seppuku base stamps, and this is the terracotta milliput material. So it's nice and firm. This stuff is all dry now, so it can be sanded, filed, cleaned up. And so that's what one of the things I was doing last night was playing with this stuff. So this is the flagstone base stamp, and you can see I probably put too much milliput on this because you know, it's spread out over the lip. Now sometimes that's a good idea, like if your model is has a wide stance, like say Gast here, for example, he's got a wide stance, and you need that little bit of extension past the inner part of a round lip base. So, you know, sometimes the model's legs or the way they're standing extends past this flat part here and is over the rounded area. Now, you know, the cheap way that I usually do that is you could take some cork basing like that and just extend it out over. Or if you're using these base stamps, you can just, you know, you can creep a little bit over that line and do it that way. So so I made some cobblestone bases for the next guild that's coming in that I'm going to paint, because these are good generic bases for Guild Ball. So a couple of 40s and then a bunch of the 30 mils here. Okay, you know, for first shot, they're okay. They're not great. I'm gonna have to improve my stamping protocol a little bit, mostly in terms of the amount of putty I'm putting on there. Maybe add a cleanup step while the putty's still soft, and so on. But this is going to be good because this is an economical way for me to take care of basing when, you know, this is my generic basing is cork basing. And while cork basing looks cool and it's scenic and whatever, it looks great, it's not, you don't want to use it all the time. And a perfect example, sadly, is this guy here, Cascade. He's arguably a little too heavy for cork basing, but I mean, he's gonna be okay. It's just I get worried about the whole thing, like him toppling over. And then, you know, there's people that don't want their models to sit above the base itself, so there's that as well. Icy Sponge says, how long does it take the putty to dry? Well, when you're making these, you have about 30 minutes or so with the material before you want it to set and really harden. And I believe, let's look at the what it says here under milliput, what they say it actually dries at. I usually am going to let this dry overnight, like fully harden, before I start to work with it. Let's see. In 2 to 3 hours, it becomes quite hard and tack-free. Overnight, it becomes half hour, it becomes rubbery and less tacky. In about 1 hour, it can be cut into shape with knife or scissors. So that's the, and that actually applies to all the different types of milliput, because I think there may be 4 to 6 different colors of milliput. Now, in general, you want the white milliput, white or the yellow milliput. They didn't have any at Brookhurst Hobbies, so I went ahead and just picked up the terracotta because the milliput black is way too hard, and it's a bit more expensive, and it's like that's like way overkill for stamping bases. In fact, terracotta is a bit overkill for stamping bases. All right, so I picked up 5 base stamps, and they actually forgot to mail me one, so I've got another one coming in the mail tomorrow. And luckily that one probably isn't going to see much use for Guild Ball. That's the like a metal stamping one, metal plating. This is here's a really cool one. This is the herringbone brick. So that's a nice one. Then this is flagstone, so that's the one I'm using. That's what you saw. This one's going to see the most use. And there's a little bit of putty on there. You're going to want to keep these relatively clean. One of the things I do when I'm stamping is, I'll put a layer of water on this so that it doesn't be drying on it. This one is the forest floor, and I'm not sure how I feel about this one. To begin with, forest floor is kind of weird. Unless you target where you're stamping. Like if you want this big leaf pattern, or you want some of the, like there's a broken branch up here, like you're gonna have to target where you want this. This looks like it's a tree stump there. So this one is interesting. You're gonna want to like that one, and then finally I've got this narrow wood plank. So this is good for like fishermen. This is good for brewers, if you want to do the tavern, that kind of stuff. So that's a reasonably good mix of stamps that I can use for Guild Ball teams. And then the metal plate I might actually use for either alchemists and or engineers, for example. Failing that, this is probably the default for most of my Guild Ball stuff. If I'm doing hunters again, it's probably going to be this one. Okay, cool. Toys and stuff out of the way. Here's the project I'm working on, the Morticians. Okay, so put together a season 1 Morticians team, and I've been updating have been painting this team on the channel with my short little painting challenge updates. So to recap, what I've done is I started with a black primer, then built up a zenithal layer using imperial blue, black gray, and finally white. That was dry. I hit that with a really, really fine dry brush of white. And then when that was dry, then I used an ink wash gradient mix of blue and black inks to really give it kind of a, so these models all have kind of a grayscale appearance to them. And it's interesting because they look so cool. They look like statues right now. I don't know how much actual I want to do with when I start applying paints to them, those areas are going to start to look opaque. Okay, so my major task tonight is going to be to paint the flesh in for these. And obviously, because they're Morticians, you want to go with a rather pale flesh tone. So I'm looking at Obulus. The one question I have is on Silence, what parts are actually on his head, what parts are actually flesh? Because it looks like on the card there, it looks like there's almost no flesh on him. And in fact, his face looks kind of more like a mask than it does an actual face. But that is his face. Okay, so we're going to go for kind of a necrotic style to the skin. I'm also going to accent with a kind of a pale blue color like that. Again, to keep with kind of a more ethereal look, like for example this genie here. Troy Perez, I got the Batman stuff today. Awesome. If you so you got a Batwoman in there. That Batwoman has a club foot. Be careful with that. It was a miscast Batwoman, so I green stuffed a foot on. Be very careful with that. Glad you got your stuff. Okay, so I'm gonna need some grays. Congrats on the successful Guild Ball auction. Thank you. Yeah, the hunters did well. Just waiting for the fish to come in. They're currently at 117. That's not great, but it's there's still a couple days left. It's gonna mean I turn a very, very minor profit if the auction ends today. In fact, probably if the auction ended today, I would actually turn no profit because it would just be enough to pay for the postage, the shipping. So that sucks. All right, but anyway, I have got to find. Oh, I need this pale blue as a highlight. So this might be a thought, kind of like this medium gray. I'm tempted to bid on the Fisherman. They look amazing. Thanks, man. I hope you do, because it's a cool team. It really is. I hope that goes to a good home. I hope somebody, whoever ends up with that team, enjoys it, puts it on the board, and starts playing it. That's kind of the idea, right? Is, you know, I like cycling through and painting all these teams. Obviously, my bandwidth for Guild Ball doesn't extend that far beyond my love of the Masons. So I'm going to enjoy painting all the teams and then, you know, make a little bit extra money here while my wife is off teaching for the summer. And we're just going to pay a few bills, maybe even put away a little bit of money. I am in like a big sale mode right now because saving money is a thing right now. Ooh, that's a nice color. That is a nice color for skin. I said that terribly. Don't repeat what I just said. Anyway, I'm going to need a base color for that. So heavy skin tone will probably work. So this is probably what I'm looking at, heavy skin tone in that. Heavy skin tone has a little bit too much brown in it, more brown than I'd want. I'll be okay. I'll deal. And then I need a color for the wood, so we'll do that. I don't even think I'll get to that tonight. Honestly, I think it's just mainly going to be skin. So we're going to paint skin tonight, and the new things I've been doing with skin. I know if anyone wants to play Fisherman, I'll be sure to send him a link to your auction. Thanks, man. Really appreciate that. Okay. And just so you know, this is the next team going up on eBay. So look at that. Somebody already bid on them. Nice. This is the next team going up on eBay. So if you are interested in a Mortician Season 1 team, there's one coming. So some more perks of watching this show. All right. So anyway, the skin, I've been having some issues with texture, skin texture, right? And it'd been driving me crazy because I was going from this heavy skin tone to basic skin tone or light skin tone. In fact, I should pull out light. I'm gonna pull this. It comes down to it, and I want to use it. And it looked fine in person, but on the photographs it looked really crumbly, really textury, and it was really starting to bother me. So I looked at kind of what the water I was using and how I was mixing it, and it's I think that was part of the problem, was that I'm thinning with water, and the pigments that are being used aren't exactly suspension. So what I'm getting at is I need something that has a little bit of dispersant in it for you chemistry folks out there, something that can actually hold, take and hold those pigments apart and prevent them from clumping up, especially when you're working really tight with a brush and just pulling it along the surface while it's drying. So go back to is the old standard here, the glaze medium. And I'm going to include a little bit of thinner medium. And we're going to treat this just like the old wet palette method. Now, for you guys that use a wet palette, this is going to make total sense. Currently don't use a wet palette, but I may be moving back to one after watching how these textures work. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bit of heavy skin tone. I'm going to add some glaze medium and some thinner medium. And I'm going to take, so we're going to blend towards this color, heavy warm gray. I'm going to put that off to the side there, just like you would a standard palette. And I'm going to take a brush here, put a little bit of water on it, not too much. Really just use the glaze to do most of the thinning. And I may even introduce a drying retardant in it. Okay. There we go. So I'm going to have a little gradient there from deep skin tone up to heavy warm gray. And I'm just going to add more heavy warm gray as we go up, okay? And with some fine detailing. It's kind of a Q&A, you know, type episode. Whatever you guys feel like talking about is what we'll talk about. I know we've been talking like Guild Ball pretty much nonstop for the past 4 or so weeks. I've also was talking a little bit of Game of Thrones, but you know, some of the viewers asked me not to do it on the live feed because spoilers. So I won't do Game of Thrones on. I still owe synopsis of episodes 3 and 4, so I'll figure out how to do that. Okay. So I'm painting Cosset right now. I absolutely love the sculpting. Just really cool expression on her face. And I think in Guild Ball, the sculptors have done a really good job on putting some character in these models' faces. Some good expressions. Oh, so you don't paint a lot of skin most of the time. There's a few models, you know, mostly the male models, the muscular ones that have large skin areas, like the Casket over there. A lot of skin to paint. Casket and Ghast. But on a lot of these, it's just kind of the head, neck, and hands. But as long as you do a decent job on the base coat, you should be okay with the rest of the model. Okay. So here's the coat of that heavy skin tone on Cosset. So my thinking here is I'm really going to do a minimal and just kind of let that shadowy look prevail. So even the secondary color, which is going to be, like I said, that blue-green, that should have a little more, you know, ethereal or ghost-like look to it. Kind of like the for Lord of the Rings. Hey, looking forward to the Game of Thrones rants. I know. I'm gonna have to schedule some extra camera time. I mean, I'm not dissatisfied with the season. It's you know, we were off to a rocky start with the writing, and I don't know. I think that's just my nature. Is when I really like stuff, I can get really, really skeptical about it. So there's that. I'm almost like anti-fanboy, like I'm skeptical fanboy, right? I like something so much that I open and examine it that way. Regarding the Pip Cup stuff, starting to get my price support in. I leaked a little work in progress of the trophy that Gabe is working on. And that's kind of a theme for this tournament. Is it's going to be a lot of custom prize support. So don't expect like the standard certificate and starter set. This is there's gonna be a lot of like Play It Painted and SoCal Guild Ball type prize support that's made specifically for this event. That's what makes it so exciting for me. It's my birthday weekend. So on my birthday every year at Strategicon, I like to have a big party gaming essentially. So and I want to do special stuff. That's why we're doing the Pip Cup. My birthday also happens to be the anniversary of Play It Painted. So that's why Pip Cup is a little special every year. And for my birthday, I like to throw something of the anniversary of Play It Painted. I believe Play It Painted as a brand, as my brand started in I want to say 2012 or 2013. I think 2013. So it's 3 years now. It's been really fun. This is really just something fun for me and do. And it's a cool way to do t-shirts and logos and all this stuff. Hey, what's up, Blade Wolf? So let's see. Troy Perez says, just watched the second Ghostbusters trailer. I love the special effects of the ghosts. Still don't like it's exactly like the first Ghostbusters movie. This is a controversial topic you're in here. You're Troy, Ghostbusters, the new Ghostbusters. I keep watching videos about the new Ghostbusters. I have a coworker who is a crazy Ghostbuster fanatic. I would say I'm a fan. I mean, I'm old enough to have watched the 1984 Ghostbusters in the theater, and I was a big fan of that movie. And I even like Ghostbusters 2. Even though it's definitely the inferior movie. I don't know. I'm still, after that first trailer and the international trailer and all this stupid around it, it's really kind of soured me on any inclinations I might have had for watching Ghostbusters. But I will say I have a bias against reboots, especially reboots of really beloved movies, and Hollywood keeps doing that. And I got off the reboot train a while ago. So honestly, the only reboot that I watched and sort of enjoyed was the Star Trek reboot, the J.J. Abrams Star Trek reboot. And I think that's mainly because I'm not such a diehard fan of Star Trek. So I could accept things that hardcore fans might look and go, oh, that's not right, or that's not accurate. If I were a hardcore fan, I'd probably have more issues with it. I liked it for what it was. Now, Ghostbusters, I do consider myself a fairly big fan movie, so I will be I will take a little more scrutiny looking at Ghostbusters, and frankly, I'm not. It's just there. It's like, wow, I need to go see that. It just, I know you guys may have heard this complaint quite a bit, but it's one that I definitely um, echo. Okay, so like one of the things that was so cool and watch the original Ghostbusters in the theater was that I got genuinely scared at parts. I was in the fourth grade, and of the movie, when Zool's doing his thing, in the library scene, that was creepy. I was like, wow, this movie is legit, right? Uh, but I don't get any of that in the reboot. It looks like it's just a flat. So anyway, it just and I should also warn you guys, I don't have a horse in this particular race because I've got a toddler and another kid on the way, so it's a while before I watch anything. Um, I was trying to actually get out and watch Deadpool in the theaters. That didn't work out. I just couldn't get the time away. And the other part of it is when I do get time away from I like to spend that time gaming because that's the most important thing for me to do when I'm not with my family. So let's see. Understandable. Oh, happy early birthday! Thanks, man. Did Play It Painted happen before or after Malifaux 2? M2 happened after. Shortly after. It was basically was in the middle of its launches. I was actively shopping for other games to play, so we started playing games like we played Dystopian Legions, we played In Her Majesty's Name, Blood Bowl again, Dead Man's Hand, Deep Wars, all those other games that I was trying out. That's really where it started. It was a segment on this channel about new games and reviewing new games, not just from a gameplay aspect, but from the aspect of somebody that has assembled and painted at least starter sets worth of miniatures. So when I was reviewing those games, I would also include, how did I like the miniatures? How did I like painting them? So that's what made Play It Painted a little bit different than your average, game review segment. So with it, and on the channel, those were becoming the most popular videos because it was like, oh, this new game came out, and rather than did two guys talk like theory craft of what the game is like, because they have built we were already in that phase. We were ahead of the curve. We're early adopters, and we were that kind of stuff, and that's kind of where it went. It was pointing out we had left Malifaux at the time, and we had a significant franchise invested in the SoCal Malifaux label. So post Malifaux, it was a conscious effort to, hey, I still want to have a brand or a label of some sort, but I don't want to associate with one specific game. I wanted to, as much as I liked Anima Tactics and Eldorado and all those games, I needed to have the flexibility to host a number of different games and play a number of different games. The idea of Play It Painted came about, and it's been that way ever since. just meant to be, a label for me and just a couple of my closest friends. Play It Painted was never really meant to be like associated with a large group. It's rather a small group that operates within other larger groups or other larger communities of gaming groups. Mostly with Tabletop forming a hub. So if you imagine, SoCal Tabletop is kind of a hub for tabletop gaming in the region, and from SoCal Tabletop, you have all these smaller subgroup around specific games or specific systems. Like you have SoCal Ninja, you have the Mantic groups, you have Flames of War, there's even a Wrath of Kings, a SoCal Wrath of Kings group. That isn't just, I'm not really associated with all of those groups. I am with some of them. And in fact, the SoCal Guild Ball group, before I came over and started playing the game, so we're just part of that group. So I was an extra in the first 2 Ghostbuster movies. Cool. I just find it funny they're using a hearse instead of a hospital car. I thought the original Ghostbusters car was also a hearse, but I don't remember. I think they're going more for paranormal comedy, because then I get to see the new reboot for free. That's cool. Yeah, I'm not sold on the reboot. And again, I don't have a horse in the race because probably that small kid still that you can't take to the movies. So it'll be a while before I watch a movie in the theater. And here's Gast looking, Silence. Looking very, very human right now. We'll fix that. We'll watch, let's see. Whoa. Gast actually has the least human looking skin of all these guys. Or sorry, Casket. Have a really cool expression on his face. Yeah, other than Deadpool, there wasn't, I can't think of a movie off the top of my head that is compelling me to want to go to a theater and watch it. Star Wars did not really compel me enough to go to the theater to watch. I know that may draw some ire. But yeah, I still haven't even seen Force Awakens. And it's just not a priority for me. So I may not see it for a while. It's kind of rocking this weird end here. You Malifaux players would know that it just reminds me of a fat Death Marshal because of the casket on his back. And he even has that casket time, which is not unlike martial ability. I think that's all this. Well, no, he actually have all this new Star Wars movie. Wait, I don't think the new Ghostbuster reboot is going to suck, but I'm going to get some free toys and stuff. So I'm just going for the free stuff. All new Star Wars movies suffer from overhype. I will totally agree with that statement. I think Star Wars at this point is such a beloved franchise that they're getting away with putting out inferior product, and people are still lapping it up. And absolutely not a unique thing for Star Wars. That's with a lot of franchises that get to a hype, essentially. And then, essentially they reach critical hype, and then it's like they can do no wrong, is kind of how I see it. I said that wrong. I think Ghostbusters is going to suck, but I'm going for the free stuff. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It may be. I honestly, here's my totally uninformed, totally just pulling shit out of thin air opinion of. I think that if you consider it's to me, it's like M2E. Here we go. M2E. It's like the old girlfriend. It's like M2E in that if you were to consider it by itself and not call it Malifaux, or in this case, not call it Ghostbusters, you probably have a reasonably good comedy on your hands. The main issue, the main point of contention, when you use the label of something else, particularly a label with a really, really strong identity behind it, and a fanatical fan base, you're gonna want to show some integrity to that label that you're using, to that brand you're using, right? I mean, there's a quote unquote Ghostbusters standard that fans of the original Ghostbusters are expecting the production crew, meaning the actors, the director, the studio, they're expecting them that standard. They're not saying you can't change anything. They're saying you need to maintain that standard and maintain that identity. And this is the thing that the internet gets all wound up about. And people that are not diehard fans will callously dismiss this and call you a crybaby, or say something is wrong with you for imposing a standard or claiming to be a Busters culture expert or something like that. They're going to mock you for that. And that's the part that is really crappy. That's like in my opinion, that is like the worst part about being a fan of something in this modern day era of, hey, we're all geeks, this stuff. Here's the thing. So it's like some of us identify very closely with stuff like Ghostbusters, and my wife and I we're Ghostbusters fans, but I wouldn't say we're rabid fans. We're fans of the franchise, but we were talking about tonight before I turned the feed on, and her comments to me were that be able to replace the comedy genius that is Bill Murray, or get close to the writing and identity of Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd. No one expects them to. But you want to know what made Ghostbusters great? It was those things. For my wife, I agree with it as well. It's those factors. They had a specific brand of comedy. Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd put together some incredible writing for this movie. Come on. We were like Vince Glortho, keymaster of Gozer. Who comes up with that? No modern day writer, director. They're not going to come up with Tome and Spirit Guide. They're not going to come up with, I like spores, molds, and fungus. Have lines like that. They're not going to have dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. They're going to approach it with a different comedy styling, and you can't fault them for that. The identity of Ghostbusters. That is, you want to know what made Ghostbusters such a great. It almost had nothing to do with the ghosts. It had more to do with the writers and actors being able to put together situations that are a little more sophisticated than, the Hollywood attempt to just kind of cash in on franchise. And I'm going to just call it like that. That's how I see this. It's like, and I know it's super easy and super trendy to just call out Hollywood on pulling some crap, but they are really pulling some crap in this instance. They really are just like, here's Ghostbusters. We're going to reboot it. We're going to re-envision it, redo it with a new director, with a totally new crew. But when you reboot, very different thing than remaking. We are overwriting that previous version, and callous opponents will go, whatever, just stick to watch your 1984 version. But there's some fallout for that. There's some moving forward issues that are going to be, because you're changing canon, you're changing that story significantly. But whatever, it's just, I do like Ghostbusters. I know what I like about Ghostbusters, and I know that this reboot cannot contain about Ghostbusters. Therefore, not that interested. So that said, I can't say what my final opinion on the movie is. It'll be a decent movie as long as you don't use the word Ghostbusters to describe it. It's like, you could say, oh, it's like Spy. They're using Ghostbusters stuff, and then you'll probably have a good time. You'll enjoy it. If you're actually looking for Ghostbusters, and you're like a diehard 1984 big fan of like Harold Ramis, Vince Glortho. Oh man, I love that character, Vince Glortho, Keymaster of Gozer. So let's see. I love my Star Wars the way I enjoy it. I don't love Star Wars because of popularity or hype. Yeah, you like Star Wars, you like Star Wars. I mean, I'm not knocking anybody for that. I'm just saying when you're a fan of something, you like it for the reasons that you like it. And when the movie studios do something you don't like, I don't think there's anything wrong in expressing that you don't like it. Especially if you're like some of these Ghostbuster fans, and this is not me, but some of these Ghostbusters fans, like the guy at my work, had been waiting so long. Ghostbusters movie, and all of the talk about Ghostbusters 3 and how that project really just went down in flames, and now it's too late because Harold Ramis is gone. Those guys have been waiting for this kind of stuff forever. They have a significant emotional investment in the franchise, much more than I ever would. And those guys are allowed to voice their opinions as far as I'm concerned. There's a political sidebar to it that sometimes I think spotlight. I don't even like to cover that side of it, because I want to talk about storytelling and movies and movie quality. I don't really care about the political side of it. So anyway, I have a different view because I was in it. I remember eating hot dog with Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd. Cool. Okay. I am going to shoot a little invite here to Callan. Let me do that. I may be on for only another hour or so because I actually have to prepare. I'm going to be selling off some terrain tomorrow, so I'm going to have to prepare. Like, they want to see a lot of different sci-fi terrain. A room is full of sci-fi terrain. So I'm going to bring. So there we go, Callum. If you want to hop on, great. If not, don't worry about it. We're going to continue to ramble here, and I'm going to paint up some skin. All right, so base coats are going down and drying, adding this heavy warm gray. But yeah, Sigourney Weaver in that hot red dress was my favorite thing in Ghostbusters. Okay, sure. That's, okay.
I remember that moment, but I always had my impression of her was always Aliens. So.
Oh yeah, it's like Alien or Aliens.
Aliens, because that was I think I saw Alien first. Maybe it was Alien, but I feel like for some reason Aliens is the one that was like, I think I saw Aliens first before I saw Alien.
Yeah, I saw Alien first, and that movie freaked me out because I was 7 years old, I believe, when I saw Alien, and then Aliens came out, I believe, when I was in 5th grade, and such a taking a franchise in a totally different direction and then just the park. I would say that's Aliens for you. Aliens is that sequel that all of these like reboots, remakes, revamps, when they try to change stuff, standard. If you can change stuff and make it such a good, like Aliens is an incredible standalone movie.
Oh yeah.
Troy's got a quote here. Both were good movies, but Aliens has the best quotable lines by far. There, but you can treat those two movies as very separate movies. They're very different in their tone, in their theme, but they're both incredible movies. I'm gonna have to say, and you chime in here what you think, Callan, but I'm gonna have to say that I liked Aliens better, but I still recognize that Alien is an incredible sci-fi horror movie in its own right.
I think they were the closest to like the threefer, like three great like movies in a trilogy or like in a run. Because the first movie, like you said, like can stand on its own, and Aliens can stand on its own, and it depends on really where your preference lies. If you love suspenseful horror, like obviously Alien is the one, like the original. And the way they portrayed, I think the way they portrayed an alien, because in previous times it was kind of all like the, just normal, like stereotypical aliens in most cases.
Yeah, the Close Encounter alien or E.T.
Yeah, exactly.
Right around that time when we were starting to get cozy with aliens, we're like, oh yeah, it's E.T. and this dude, he's our friend. And then Alien comes out. No, they pop out of your stomach, and they have 2 sets of jaws.
And the other thing they accomplish that's even hard nowadays is like you watch a lot of movies like that, and like the thing it does well too is it's kind of like the suspense of till you actually see the alien, but like when they show you the alien, like it actually was good, versus like a lot of times it's like when they finally show you the thing, you're like, God dang it, like this is stupid, or it's like
badly like
CG
or something.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like the suspense is better if you held it back. Because it's the time where they actually showed it and it worked.
Yeah,
which for them is pretty good.
And the whole design of the alien was just completely original for its time. Like slimy metallic thing that pops out of your chest. That's just that the guy who designed the alien. That guy is madman. Like if you look at his design of the alien, his design of like Syl from Species, like the alien race in Species. I think it's the same guy.
Yeah, and
it's just brilliant. But it's like Kingdom Death type, horrifying and beautiful at the same time. Let's see some comments here. Uh, VHS rental store like Blockbusters. Okay. H.R. Geiger is the great monster designer for Alien franchise. Without Geiger, aliens wouldn't be around. I know. Like that, he just totally changed the whole Alien with the creation of that creature. Nice. How do you feel about? Okay, here's one. How do you feel about Aliens 3? Now there's a movie.
What so here's a thing that my mother loved the Aliens franchise, and she's actually the one that exposed me to the movies, and I watched them with her. And so when Aliens 3 came out, this was the chance for us to see it together in a theater. And so I went with my mom, and my mom came out and she was like, I hated that. And I was like, yep. And that's how I feel about Aliens 3.
Yeah. Aliens 3 is another one of those. The Alien franchise, what's really interesting is if you look at those three movies, saying those three movies in their own right are very, very different movies. And they're interesting stories on their own. Tricky is when you chain them together. And in the case of going from Alien to Aliens, it's a very cool transition because it changes the story into kind of like paramilitary type story from a classic horror story. 3 almost goes to like like an Escape from New York type, apocalyptic scenario, which unfortunately turn the story that way. It's not as good, in my opinion. I think it loses by going down that route. Whereas had they just it as an Alien offshoot movie, like here's what happened on a separate colony, kind of like what they did with what was that? What's the name of that? Can't even think of the actress name now. Man, you know what I'm talking about? Prometheus.
Oh, Prometheus. Okay.
So Prometheus also set in the Alien universe, but it's an offshoot side story. You accept the characters separately, and you just accept it for what it is. It's a different happening within that same universe. If they had almost just taken the 3 off of Aliens 3 and brought it in as, penal colony, right? And like subtitled it like that, I would be happier with that movie. The fact that it's called Aliens 3, though, it finishes off, the story for Ripley and Newt and Bishop and all that. It's like, it's a good story, but the minute you wove these awesome characters that we loved into it, it lost some luster. I don't know. What do you think?
Ends Ripley's story? You mean until she gets resurrected?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I actually think that 3 was actually worse than Resurrection. Although I don't remember Resurrection as much.
No, most people do.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Yeah. Resurrection was a little more action movie.
Yeah. Just trying to get back to the alien.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of like weird comments. Sigourney Weaver's Nesty Plunge. Okay.
Don't Google that.
Okay. H.R. Geiger had a design for Batmobile Forever. Okay. Yeah.
You can Google that.
You can't. Yeah, I'm not gonna Google that though. That's okay. We'll skip that one. So you doing any painting tonight, Callan? I know you've almost every single Guild Ball thing that you own.
The only things I have left is Corsair and my scoreboard.
Nice.
Actually, 1 second. I can grab that. 1 second.
Yeah, Resurrection. Prometheus was part one of the story. Yeah, I mean it is set before the Alien movie, linked in a way, but it's it is kind of a separate story. Resurrection was more fun, but still a flawed movie. Agreed. I don't know. So it was just a fun movie, I guess. You could call it, for whatever you like there. Okay.
Yeah, so I got my I got the advanced deployment basically scoreboard. So
Nice.
it's you basically kind of build it yourself, but you can kind of see I started on at least the wood part of this. I don't know how well this shows up or anything, but that's just the slots that all the stuff goes through.
Yeah, those things look cool.
And it even has team tags, so you can hang the team, and I've kind of colored them in
nice.
respective colors.
Yeah, I'm waiting for some of my friends that do to make me a scoreboard.
Yeah, I think this one's pretty good. The part that David pointed out to me though, like pretty quickly, he's like, yeah, I feel like the numbers are too small. And I was like, yeah, and that's actually kind of originally I was just gonna like put it together, and then I was like, well, no, now I have to paint it, and then I was like, okay, well, if the numbers are small, I'll just like etch them, make them a little bit bigger. But that's probably the only thing. But it's nice. The design's slick and it's easy to put together, so I dig it.
AVP or AVP2? Okay, that's an easy one for me. My wife loves AVP. Loves the first movie. Sort of meh for her, and I would say I agree with that. I really like the first movie. And it's a fun movie. Had a somewhat interesting story. I mean, whenever they do for summer blockbusters like that, a lot of times they'll end up writing kind of a really ridiculous setup. But for whatever reason, I was cool with the AVP setup. AVP2 wasn't bad. It just if I'm going to choose one, I would stick with the first movie.
It felt to me like Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat 2. Like Mortal Kombat, the movie, you were like, okay, I'll give it a pass on nostalgia. This is kind of like cool, even though it's doing some really hokey things. And then Mortal Kombat 2 or whatever the hell, you're just like, what happened? Like, why are we doing this?
Why are we doing this? Love them both for different reasons. Yeah, I still like the original Mortal Kombat movie. Thought it was hilarious.
Dude, and when they finally kick in that music and it's like Mortal Kombat, and you're just like,
yeah,
yes.
I love that so much. And I must admit, like, loved Bridget Wilson in that movie. I was like, yeah, movie, this is a good movie. Whatever.
Yeah, well,
Mortal Kombat 2 was it. Yeah, I think it like broke a threshold there of ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it felt like you were kind of watching a kids movie, but they were trying to keep the ultraviolet. But I don't know.
By the way, did you see the stuff?
Oh, go ahead.
The Vengeance stuff, the Vengeance tournament that happened in the UK, I believe. It was like 118 people played it for Guild Ball. It was like 7 rounds.
Wow.
That's pretty epic. That's like a marathon, man. Like I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, and the guy that won that was also apparently the guy. He's also the guy that was winning all the painting competitions. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's like it's like hardcore people. they come out. But yeah, he was Alchemist, and he was playing Midas, which
He won
actually I thought
with
was interesting.
Midas.
Yeah.
What do you think about the whole Obulus, the latest campaign to nerf Obulus?
What's is that on the forums?
It's like it exists in a few different forms, but there's on the Steamforged forums that there's the occasional thread that pops up about Obulus being a troublemaker or a negative play experience or something like that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say there's like an organized drive to do it, but it does come up. The thing Obulus comes up more so than any ideas about nerfing somebody like Midas.
Yeah. I think they're both interesting because they both in a way can like affect the way you play between Midas, because like those two like in season 1 we're usually in the conversation of like OP captains. Because they're both MVP captains, and the fact that like Obulus is just volume. Like him himself actually doesn't do that great of work, honestly. Like his playbook is good because it's 5 and he has 6 attack, but it's he's generally like struggling, and you're like praying for 2 momentous damage on 3 hits most of the time. And if he doesn't get that, then you're only doing dodges pretty much, and not much else. So his actual like threat is just the fact that he at some point he could put 8 influence on themselves, get a kill to finish, and then go score a goal. That's actually where his like strength kind of lies. And then Rigor Mortis, which is like for new players, is super punishing because until you get hit by it, you usually give up a bunch of momentum. But then when you play in a tournament against someone, you kind of end up realizing that all I'm effectively doing is I'm forcing them to spend it instead on going first and instead on their board state to improve it. So you actually kind of push your opponent towards like making it harder for you to deal with the board, which is kind of an interesting scenario where it's like you have to really take advantage of the fact that you're going first every turn at that point, because if you ever flub any first activation, then you actually fall behind really quickly. So Obulus, like, he does a lot of these meta things. As far as I think probably the most abusive that people point towards is the Puppet Master being able to like grab a player and move them, especially in the early turns, is like very much reminiscent of like Gutter, because Gutter why she got nerfed is like you move 2 inches off your start line and she used to come grab you and you're like, well, okay, and then pull you into the team and stuff like that. Where Obulus is
certain death.
Yeah. Now, I mean, that only cost her. It was a 1 influence play to hook you. And Obulus is 4. I think the problem with the ability, and if they looked at it, and probably if they were going to nerf him, the first thing I would say is like, there's no reason I need to get an influence back for that ability hitting. There's like 0 reason that I should get an influence back. It's actually like, because 1, it's 4 dice, so now it's easier to hit. And so like essentially it ends up being like it's like a 3 influence play, but gets automatically bonus time to hit. Yeah, and so it's like okay. And then if you cast it on your teammate, which sometimes is actually the way more like the threat is that I'm gonna Puppet Master your thing, but the actual like potential like OP stuff in general is that I can just like for automatically hit my buddy and make them attack or make them like get extra moves so they can charge and you thought they were out of range, or I can make myself jog to be able to score a goal, like that kind of stupid stuff. Or even the more ridiculous stuff that I've done is like first activation, pass it to silence, Puppet Master him to pass it back to me. Look, I have like 2 momentum, and then like I kick a goal with bonus time. I'm like, yay! Like that kind of stuff is the shenanigans that like that ability is so powerful. Don't need to give me 1 influence back. Like it's just like I don't even know. At the same token, misdirection's probably like never used because of this as well, which is another influence manipulation ability. So I think that like I would agree that there are parts about him that I'm kind of like, yeah, like, and I think that on top of that, the problem with him is he's super safe because he has 2 inch reach, he has unpredictable movement, and like
that's kind of what I'm getting at and I think that's where a lot of the complaints come in. It's like, okay, we know Obulus is going to do his with Puppet Master and all that, But one of the major, one of the more common concerns I see is that he has the defensive tech all kind of in that regard. 2-inch reach, unpredictable movement, and I think he's got a dodge on one, and then he's got shadow like, right?
Yeah.
So he has all of those together, which are all super, super good, defensive repositioning type shenanigans.
Yeah.
And so it's like, so one of the thoughts that I see is like, oh, we should pick one of these things for him not to have. I was like, okay, and
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where, like, if you can leave all his other abilities alone, but it's that he gets these defensive abilities, and they're for the most part, they're just inherent abilities. They're traits. So
yeah.
But yeah.
So I think there's tweaks you can make to him. Like when people like point out that so 2-inch reach is probably the strongest ability in the game, and he has that, which is really amazing. And then when you give him unpredictable movement, now unpredictable movement comes the best ability in the game, because the reason Midas I think is like actually not so bad is like he has clone and stuff like that, but it's like, or the models that have unpredictable movement, but they have that 1-inch melee zone, like Brisket and those players, like you can get around it, right? I just have to have 2 inches to get around it. Now the answer to a 2-inch model is the same, but it's harder because you have to get into base to base, because then if they dodge, you can automatically hit them. I think that the problem lies in that unpredictable movement is the most punishing thing for a new player. Like it's like, because it'll straight up it's don't touch the hair, right? Don't touch the hair was a problem because the card you couldn't even, it was unpredictable movement, but you couldn't see it. Like you just got surprised that this model has unpredictable movement all of a sudden, and it has nothing to do with you being in their melee zone. Where the thing about unpredictable movement as a trait is that it's only when you it's when you advance in their melee zone. So I think the problem for new players is it's really hard when you start out to grasp how I'm supposed to combat this. And I think that when players start to figure out ways to combat it, its strength kind of like goes away. And what happens is the Mortician players that were used to Obulus being invulnerable get caught unaware, and Obulus dies, and like Morticians like very quickly are like, oh crap. Like
essentially it's like when you're in a new meta and people don't know how to deal with unpredictable movement, it works both ways, because they're getting screwed by just getting surprised by it. And but what happens, what you're saying is like over time, the player that has it, if they never really learn how to cope when it's countered, it ends up being a crutch, and like suddenly, your Obulus dies because somebody figured out how to dodge into them or use a reposition or something else to get around it, or just wait for him to use it and then hit him with the real attack. And then so once they lean so heavily on Obulus defensive traits that once it's very easy to put him down, because those players have become careless with him, right?
Yeah.
And so it works against them in the long run too. I totally see that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to absorb when you first start out Guild Ball, and I think that unpredictable movement is like on top of like just trying to figure out how to kill stuff and get victory points to begin with. Like unpredictable movement is just a thing like you're not like necessarily seeing as a new player as like a board state, where like more often than not, like I actually, before a game even starts, I actually pay attention to specifically who on the enemy team has unpredictable movement, because it's that good, and then how I'm going to and how I'm going to start, or how I'm even going to set up, and who is going to solve for that problem. Because a lot of times it's a 2-inch melee model. It's a model that has like where they go is a good way, because you actually have to advance into and end your advance into someone's melee zone for it to trigger. So if you dodge into someone's melee range, or like you dodge into that zone, they actually can't unpredictable movement. So it's another way to get around it. Also, there are just characters that have ways that once it triggers can follow up. One of my favorite ones I ever did when I was playing Brewers once was Because Obelisk like was super safe because I had no 2-inch melee models around. What I actually did is I had Stave in like basically sprinting distance, so I sprinted Stave into melee with Obelisk, and Obelisk was like, "Well, you have 1-inch range. I'm going to use my unpredictable movement." To which then I said, "Okay, I'm going to lob barrel behind Obelisk," and I knocked down into my team. And so there's like ways that you can kind of force like situations where like using unpredictable movements like not it's like not good, because at that point too it's like double punishment because he used it thinking he was safe, and then now he's knocked down and he can't, because it's a trait. Another stupid thing is you can use unpredictable movement while you're knocked down. So now he actually doesn't have that as that kind of defense mechanism as well. But yeah, I think again, it's a combination of things that make him super punishing for anyone starting the game, and at the high level, I think the problem necessarily isn't Obulus at that point. Like when you get to high levels, it's the fact that I think the Morticians as a whole actually have like just such good control that they have such a good late game team that usually in those high level matches, like when you get to the final game with Alchemists and Morticians in that Vengeance tournament was literally the dude scoring two victory points before he clocked out and lost to the Morticians player. So like at the high level, like you're gonna love those teams that actually like don't have to start early and strong to win. You want the teams that are gonna like constantly get like first turn activations and have a ton of control, and you drag them into deep waters, but you've built up this like slow, just like kind of steamroller of advantage that you win. And so I think that's why like there's like the combination of things is like super punishing new players, and Morticians as a whole are good, and he's the kind of the hell master. So a lot of people are instantly going to point towards like, obviously needs to be nerfed. And I agree, some of his stuff actually should be toned down. I don't know if unpredictable movement is the thing, but I mean, I'm interested to see what Steamforge does, because I know that they're looking at Obulus, and I think that at some point he's probably going to get touched, but I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be unpredictable movement. The obvious thing to me is Puppet Master, and then beyond that, I'm not quite sure what else they're going to touch, but it's probably going to be something else as well.
Let's see. Someone at Ease plays Morticians, but doesn't play him because people tend to get a bigger taste in their mouth when they play against Morticians. Well, new players, I would say, against if you're a veteran Mortician player and you're playing against a new player, you gotta play a little responsibly. You know, you should probably one of the things you might do is just inform them, like when they're doing the charge, like, hey, I have this ability called unpredictable movement. Here's what it does, especially, you know, and if it's a learning game, that's really the onus is on the veteran Morticians player to help the understand how that works. Not necessarily to show them how to get around it, because it's like, here's what you maybe just kind of present them. Okay, remember, if you end in advance, you know, within this guy's melee range, then I get unpredictable movement, and then they'll have to come up with a creative way to get around that. One thing that like with Hammer that I've been doing to get around stuff like unpredictable movement or you know, situations where that 2-inch melee is rough is because Hammer is such a one-man show. You give him the ball, and then to get into that, you pass the ball and then do your teamwork play. You know, you do your passing move and just dodge into the guy.
Yeah.
Unload on the guy. But there's stuff like that that's just kind of learning curve stuff for Guild Ball that you need to be aware of. I do the same thing where it's like I need to know which models have unpredictable movement. I want to know which models have unpredictable movement and who has 2-inch melee. Because to me, that's like the most important thing. And then, you know, to a lesser degree, it would be good to know who has gluttonous mass. Yes. You know, the kind of stuff. It's like, okay, when you're planning an attack, you got to make sure, okay, I got to get through his gluttonous mass before I can calculate or approximate how much damage I can do.
Yeah, I mean, usually it's like kind of like target priority when you look at your opponent's lineup. There's always going to be models that are easier to kill than others. Like, especially I think like a really good example is like Brewers because they have so many tough hide models that when you look at them, you're like, okay, it's like, okay, who is the most valuable target that I can take out, but then who is the most likely targets that I can take out, which actually ends up usually being like Friday and Spigot, especially when people take Spigot. Like Spigot's like the prime target. Similar to like Masons, if you ever see like Chisel on the other side of the board, like that's like when you're just like, okay, I want to try to one turn someone. Like those are the people you're gonna gun for because they're susceptible. Butchers, specifically like matchup dependent stuff. Like when I play against Butchers, I mean, obviously like Ox is the best person to take out, but then like if you think of common culprits, you're never gonna play Butchers and there's not gonna be a freaking Shank in there, and he's only 4-0, and as soon as you like knock him down or put anything on him, he's pretty much done. So it's like he's like using some of them like, okay, I take him out. And then once you remove all the 2-inch threats, then you kind of like Butchers start to falter, especially when you have Obulus, because Obulus becomes safe. But usually, like, so the prime targets are usually at that point, like Shank, because he'll be up in your business, whatever, and then Gutter because Gutter's just a jerk. but again, like you remove the 2-inch threats, and then you can kind of like start to work on the other team with a little bit of impunity.
So as a Morticians player, I think one of the things that people are always, how do you, because a lot of people are just terrified by that matchup. How do you approach taking apart a Butcher's player? Basically asking you how do you beat you? Everyone who's played in the tournament wants to know, how do you beat Callan?
Oh, you mean how do you take apart a Morticians player?
What are you in your opinion? What are the things that you want to highlight?
So I think the key way that you kind of the way that I approach Morticians, because I've played against Morticians, but the funny part is I've played against Morticians with other factions. I've not played Morticians versus Morticians, which is the funny part. But either it's figuring out a way to get around unpredictable movement and peg Obulus, or just to pick apart a lot of what I view as like squishy targets, because they actually don't do really great in a like straight up brawl. They more succeed by like isolating your players. So the key is to be patient and approach them like basically like make them have to overcommit to do something, like have to spend a lot of resources just to try to isolate a player, or present a volume of threats that they can't respond to necessarily. Like if you put them all at once, the part where you start to lose really badly and the way that like they succeed, I think, is that they get those kind of like isolations on a player. And then that just like it's really hard to come back with that, because when they get first turn activations, they have great control. So especially when you kick, like if you receive the ball, it's like generate that momentum, be patient, play for turn 2, like don't give them momentum, and then like you could, after you have that kind of advantage on them, it's pretty good. If you kick to them, like slow play it. Don't run your guys out into the center of the field, like so that Obulus can pull them in. Like if he wants to really like pull someone, make him overpay so that they can't generate a ton of momentum to secure turn the turn 2 going first, because they can pass the ball around depending on their team, but usually like they actually have really crappy passing stats in most of their teams that you would see. Like it's a lot of like 2 dice kicks, and in some cases 1 dice kicks. So they don't actually do the like chain pass down the line very well. And then once you get the ball, especially like if they haven't scored yet, the main thing is just like get the ball, keep the ball out of the way, drop the ball so Obulus can't PM. Like just like you have to be like really diligent about it. But like once you start to take out their pieces, they fall apart really quickly. Like Gast is really like cost prohibitive to go after, but like once you get past the fact that he has Rising Anger and that stuff, and like if he has really good counterattacks, which I think is the best part about him. But like once if you actually have the ability to lay into him, he dies so fast. Like he has no tough hide. He doesn't have great defensive stats. He is a momentum battery. The problem is you kind of give them 2 momentum in the process of of going after the battery, which I think is that's the hard part about them, is that part. Beyond Cosset, easy to kill, like falls apart super easily. Like even like when they take Rage, like Rage is pretty easy to kill, and if you can keep them turned off, then that slows them down a ton. Silence actually surprisingly, especially if you can knock him down, if you have like one of those like low knockdown tier characters, like killing Silence will put them in a tough spot as well, really quickly. And he has a lot of hitboxes and he's defense 5, but if you knock him down, he's pretty easy to get through. So I find like those are usually really big target pieces, especially against like higher tier Morticians player, because they're going to want to play off your activations a lot. And Silence is the main vehicle in which they do that. And if you kill him, it sends him way back. He doesn't actually have a lot of movement, so it's hard for him to push up the field. The point where you actually have to be scared is like when the Morticians have actually like really pushed you kind of to your side of the pitch, because that's when it's just like it's almost impossible to get the ball out safely at that point, because like Obulus like has a huge threat zone to get the ball back, like, and they have like, you know, Mist and people hanging around, and they can score very easily from those kind of ranges, from like really odd positions. But yeah.
Listen, Gast versus Boar is brutal. Gast can prevent Boar from being able to attack, and Boar can't escape without taking the parting blow, and only has a 0.000285% chance of avoiding a knockdown. That's a horrible matchup for Boar. That's just
you don't take Boar.
It's almost a hard counter. Yeah.
I think
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that also you have to build a lineup that plays well against them too. Again, because like, you don't want to have like higher defenses you have, the better, because they rely a lot on character plays. Like when you are, I mean, unless you are a faction that just inherently doesn't have a choice, like Masons don't have a choice, right? Like they're not like, right. Oh, okay, well, we're not going to get hit by character plays today. Yeah, it's like, okay, well,
that she'll help, but even then, she only brings most of the guys up to a 4.
Yeah, but 4, you know, because again, when I'm talking about character plays, I'm mainly talking about like tucked and shutout, like because PM's gonna land, but tucked and shutout, the best that they have to. It's such a commitment because it's one die which you don't want to commit to as a Mortician player. So usually what you do is you move up, he like Silence generates the momentum, and then you like bonus time them as necessary. But I mean, like even with 2 dice, like you miss that. If you miss that key shutout, it's so many resources put into. It's like it's kind of like missing a goal, is what it feels like when you miss those like tucked and shutouts in a lot of cases, because you put in the time to like the influence, not only for him to like swing twice and try to generate the momentum, but then also losing the momentum in the character play. It's like, dear God. And then he's usually in a position after he's engaged a model where he's up the field, so he's kind of exposed.
That's true. How do you feel about shutout on other players that don't have tucked, like for Tower, for example?
I think it's really good, right? Like it's probably underappreciated, and like it's really weird, but if I don't actually, you know what, I'm gonna look at. I don't have Tower, even though I have Masons. I actually don't know why I don't have Tower. I think I had something against him for some reason. Who knows?
I'm running Tower in my Hammer lineup, and he
has a momentous push on 1 and a momentous. I mean, like, okay, so here's what I'd say. I think he's actually probably underplayed just for this, because if you think about it, like. In Hammer, it's hard. Like, so like it is hard to think about, like, okay, like why would I want to do this on a Masons team? But if you can shut out like really key players, it's so good. Like tucked is potentially better because you get the action back. Like think of it as like if I activate Silence, he does stuff, I get a shutout off, and then I get a tucked on your model that like your mascot that has no influence. Like essentially that's like, okay, I get to go back to back because your mascot that can do nothing is not going to hurt me. But shutout, like if you get it on a player, like if you get it on those key like first activation players like Tapper, like Ox, like those kind of guys, it really screws them up. Theron and Hunters, like you're just like, yeah, no blessing of the Sun Father for you guys, and he can't cast on himself, so winner's me. Like that kind of stuff can actually be super powerful, right. But it's a little bit of a. But again, it is a kind of gamble, and so like again, if you're like in a Hammer team, it's like, do you feel like that's worth it, or do you feel like just sending Hammer to kill the captain is like the way to go? Like,
well, what I really like about Tower on the Hammer team is he is kind of a, he really is just kind of a throwaway guy. I mean, he's got the Florida ability, which is really nice for pairing him up with Hammer, and he also has knockback, and so having multiple options for knockback is really nice. And then he's got a reasonable kick, and it's got good health. And then he has his heroic, which is okay. But he is kind of more of a flexibility character than he is a character that you run any plays around, or at least run plays for. So when I was fielding him with Honor, he was underperforming because on the Honor lineup, you kind of pick your superstar each turn. Like, okay, this is going to be a big mallet turn, so we're going to load him up. He's going to get superior strat. He'll get the tooled up, whatever. Flint turn, and you kind of play it that way. With Hammer, every turn is a big Hammer turn, right? And if your opponent screws it up, anybody who's around who's more efficient, like who can do efficient things with low influence, or who can do smaller supportive plays like a tower, a brick, those like influence efficient guys are good to run with Hammer. One thing that I've seen with Hammer is if you're receiving with Hammer, you have like the amazing first turn, and then you have to invest something to kind of either keep him in the play, or because you don't really want to throw him away after that first turn. It does mean a lot of times like second turn will be lackluster for him if you push too far upfield with him, or if you weren't able to keep your support pieces around him. Then that whole second turn is almost kind of where you have this kind of trying to scramble to set up for the third turn. So, for example, Tower in that lineup, Tower and Chisel, and you can run some kind of plays to start to soften up targets with them. On the second turn, you're more than likely not going to be able to take a target from full health without Hammer, or Hammer time, I should say, running nearby. But that's kind of the bonus too. Like if you have that fantastic first turn with Hammer, and then you get to go second turn, but Hammer isn't in a great position to do anything, then you can actually use that heroic play. A lot of people on the forum say this, and I kind of agree with it. Like, you don't actually play for that heroic play. It's a fail-safe to kind of sew up the subsequent after Hammer has been amazing, essentially.
Yeah. I think that like I was even thinking in my head, it's like, okay, like you have Tower, like go forward, he generates momentum, he shuts out like their key model, and then like he uses the other momentum he generates to be like boom, like here's heroic, and now you have like this 18 health battery on a tough hide Hammer model or whatever. But then I'm just like, oh, or they just like then go at him and push him out of the way, and then he doesn't matter anymore. I don't know.
Now I'm wondering. Here's a really weird question. I'm wondering if you could telegraph through Vet Harmony to Tower.
Yeah, I believe you can.
That's crazy. So you have this huge range of damage redistribution. If you line Harmony as one of her traits, and then if Hammer's heroic is up, he can take damage from Harmony, because Harmony only has the 10 health. So you don't want to be doing that very often with Vet Harmony. But that's interesting. That reminds me of the water carrier in El Dorado, who can distribute health around the board or around the peasants. Whenever peasants get hit. Huh. That's interesting. My season 2 lineup is for Masons is my attempt to overlap with the season 1 roster, except for maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm. It's for sure the season 2 roster. I don't think as competitive as my season 1 roster, mainly because I am giving up Mallet and Flint. So that's like heresy right there. A lot of people are gonna be mad just to hear that. But the team would operate around Tower, Chisel, Vet Harmony, and then you could even put like a snakeskin in there. And I've been putting Mist in there for another 2-inch range guy. It's just not working. It's just not working well with Mist. One of the things that I struggle with Mist is you either got to invest in his turns, like give him the influence he needs. Yeah. Otherwise, he's just kind of like a goalie. He just kind of waits around for the other team to score, and then you can give him the ball, he'll run downfield and score right back.
Yeah.
Really, and I don't know, maybe I've been spoiled with too much Flint, but has been on my Masons team, and I have half a mind to switch him out with Snakeskin or Decimate. But Decimate is on my season 1 team, so I'm trying to stay purist here.
Pure Civil War.
Yeah, and I'm trying to stay. Is that there on the back of Silence's? Looks like bare skin back there. I don't know. Yes. I'll paint it as. It's got a weird outfit, this guy.
Wait, is it bearskin? I thought it was a turtleneck because he still has like a collar. It goes up to a collar.
It does go up to a collar. Let's fix that.
Yeah, because I was trying to, in my head, I was trying to remember. I was like, how did I paint mine?
But it's pretty cool. It's kind of like I'm going with almost like grayscale paint job on these guys. So they're gonna look real, ethereal looking. I actually think I need to go even more pale with Silence's face here. May have to go more pale on that.
Creepy face, man. Actually, really
kind of looks like a mime. That's what he reminds me. Like a mime.
Yeah, I like Silence a lot. I think he's a cool model. I had a lot of fun once I started painting him. Originally, I didn't pick up Silence because when I first got into the game, everything I saw said that he was just a mana battery, and I was like, well, I don't want a mana battery on my team. I want to pick the models that are cool, man, and that kind of stuff. And so when I started, I was like, and then I kind of finally then played him and realized what he did, and I was like, oh, no, he's I don't know why you wouldn't take him. On top of the fact that he gives you 3 influence.
Wow. That is pretty nice. Especially on an Obulus team. Now, have you tried out Scalpel yet?
Yeah, I love Scalpel. Okay, I'm on the Scalpel train, which is why when if they nerf Obulus, I'll be like, that's okay. No, because he'll still be Obulus. Rigor Mortis isn't going anywhere. A lot of the other stuff isn't going anywhere. So I'm like, okay, whatever. But Scalpel is a really exciting new avenue for Morticians, and the reason I love her is because the same way, because I actually played Esther's recently, so we actually had a game night at Riot again for Guild Ball, and we had some outside people come. One of the other guys in the local area came over, and like we played some games, and specifically one of the players I was playing against wanted to play against Brewers, and so like I actually got to play Esther's, and kind of the same way I love Esther's is why I love Scalpel, and that like it's a totally different take on what a captain should be. Where a lot of season 1 captains are like they're like the star. I mean, barring Hammer, because Hammer's just like the over like they cranked him up to 11 version of that. But like where a lot of season 1 captains are like MVP captains, like here are 2 captains that can turn it on. Like you can give them, you can give Scalpel 6 influence and she'll go like just murder someone, or give Esther's and she like legendaries. The next thing you know, like your tank is gone. Like, but in most cases they give you flexibility because they're perfectly fine not getting like any influence. Like you can even go super influence light on them, and even just a Scalpel in a turn, like moving and popping unnatural stamina and coming back around to reposition for like first activation the next turn, potentially like with the ball and able to like kill someone and score, is like pretty scary. And she's so mobile. Like because everybody said she was mobile, and I was like, well, I mean, how does it really feel in game? She is crazy mobile because you either send her in and she just kills the dude and then unnatural stamina is out, or in a lot of cases you can just use unnatural stamina and leave because she has the +1. She becomes a 5/1 essentially, and against a lot of models you can just get away, and they're not going to do much to you depending on if you pick your targets right, which you should with her, because if she does get caught, similar to Filet, like they'll die really quickly. But she's super fast, and she gives you the ability and to reposition a lot, and she gives you the flexibility to run models that normally like are not influence efficient. So one of the models I'm super high on lately in my play is Graves. I think Graves is actually ridiculously strong, and I feel the same way as I felt about when I came in and everybody told me Silence was just a mana battery, and when I came in, everybody then later it evolved into like Graves is not influence efficient, you shouldn't take Graves. And then I just basically looked at everything he does as like he's basically like a stat positive for every aspect besides influence for Morticians. Like if you take Morticians, take all their stats, like he is like on the high side, and even compared to other players in the game, like he actually has really good stats. It's like you just lose the 1 influence. So enter in Scalpel, who 1 less influence than Obelisk because he's 5'8", which again is part of Obelisk's strength. But she also can run no influence, and then now you have like you can have a 4 influence Graves that can go do like very murderous things. You can have him late activation and be able to put bleed on people. In combination with Scalpel, one of my favorite things has been lately to run Avarice and Greed, because especially when you have activation advantage and you run someone like Graves, now you have a model that can Scything Blow or put the bleed on people, and they don't have an opportunity to clear it, which becomes super strong. And there were some cases like where I was playing this lineup of it was Avarice and Greed, Scalpel, Ghast, Silence, and Graves. And that lineup was actually, it won. Dirge is obviously in there or whatever. But that lineup was actually really good to the point where there was times where I actually had 3 activation advantage in turns because I was just that far ahead. And so it's just like it becomes these really disgusting moments where like they like it gets to the end of the turn, I could basically draw them out to force them to have to use all their activations. Till then I come in with like, and they can't do anything, they can't heal damage, they can't do anything about it. You bring in your beaters and it just like it does wonders. And especially with Graves, like his just basically being able to put bleed on anybody you just deal 1 damage to is pretty amazing. And the other thing he does well is he has a tackle on 1. Morticians don't have that. I mentioned that Morticians also suck at just playing the passing game. Like I bonus time in tournaments so many passes just simply because I can't afford to have them miss. And even then they could miss. Like I've missed goals with Obelisk quite a few times. But in this case, he's someone that's pretty reliable. A 3-6 kick, like which seems average and normal for most teams, is like a godsend in freaking Morticians.
Like, oh my god!
So it's the combination of he has 2-inch reach. He has great bleed. He has Scything Blow as a possibility, although it's not great in his playbook because it's not momentous and it's on 5 hits. And you also have the fact that he can actually play football, which is great. But the other thing he has is speed. He's 7 inches, but if anybody's damaged, he goes to 9 inches on a charge because of damaged target. So now he actually becomes like arguably one of the best like board sweepers like in the game. Like, because once you push to their side with him, like he basically controls an almost 2 foot zone of like, you cannot bring a player back on, otherwise I will come and kill them. Like, and that is like
Wow.
that's one of his best traits. And I think that like it's super like when you just look at him and you dismiss him because like he only has one influence. I just like I don't know. Now that I've started playing him, I'm like he's really good. If he's used properly and you have a team that can afford him, he's really good.
Nice. So
Hashtag Playgraves 2016.
yeah, I'm right now. I'm in the process of learning Hammer, and he's super fun. But I kind of I don't know. I might be short sighted here, but I just don't see my go to. Even though I do feel that he is on the same power level as Honor, is just I just like the one play style better.
Yeah. I'm finding the more I play, the more I'm starting to really like flexibility. And kind of on the same note as Scalpel, like Obulus is never not going to have like at least 4 influence, which in a lot of cases is like at least a third of your, or well, in most cases is like close to a third of your influence. So having a captain where you don't have to do that is like so freeing. At the same time, you can give them 8, like, and in Scalpel, but in Scalpel's case, it's like you can give her nothing, or you can give her 6, and then she can just go like mess with people. I think one of the tough things I run into with her though is like I still haven't got used to her kill potential. So there's a few times where I've been like, I don't think I can kill this guy, so I'm going to start using Torment Agony to shove an influence off. And then the next swing I like hit really good. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just kill him. Like, so I've had a few of those snares, but I think that she basically the times I've played her, the team has set her up for success, and in most cases she's put up like 8 or 10 of the VPs, just because you can always you basically she has like kind of the way I kind of describe her is like it's kind of like off on turns. So in most cases she has a turn where she comes in, like messes up everything, probably kills someone, and then unnatural stamina's out. The next turn, the influence goes in your team, and your team actually does a lot of the work, and she kind of repositions for the following turn, like somewhere completely different to maybe someone that's come on the board and they didn't expect, or like something like that. And then in a lot of cases too, I try to get her the ball on those turns. And then at that point, it's like now she's in threat of she's going to go try to kill a target and probably break off and score because she has 1 damage momentous push dodges like really early in her playbook. And she has anatomical precision, so she melts through people, which feels so good compared to Obulus, who like struggle buses to get that 2 momentous damage sometimes. So yeah. I'm digging her. The other thing I'm digging about Avarice and Greed too, besides the activation advantage, is they have momentous 2-inch push on 2, which is actually I think one of the strongest, most underrated things you can have on a playbook early.
Oh, for sure.
I quickly started to realize this recently playing against Hunters, because Hunters have a lot of... So I actually think that because a lot of Hunter players, they get excited. They're like, Jakar, yes. Like, this guy is so awesome. Like, Jakar is so cool. And then I realized that his playbook has, like, no threats to counterattacks. Like, and so he can't get in range, and he has nothing that'll get him, like, usually get a result that'll get him safe. So... like, and then I found out what you do is you basically just like he comes in, you counterattack, he does whatever his thing is. He can't if he has to charge, he can't place his trap beforehand. So then you just counterattack and you just push him 2 inches away, and then his turn ends, and he's like, well, dang, like. But that 2-inch push you can use as a counterattack instead of, because if you knock someone down, chances are they generated momentum off the hit, and then they're just spending the momentum to stand back up. And then they keep swinging at you, where if you just do the 2-inch push, most of the time, like, no one's going to still be in melee with you. Very few people think about that, so they don't get it. It's unlike unpredictable movement, they're not going to base to base you. And in that case, like, it's actually one of the best counterattack abilities. But so Avarice and Greed, having it being momentous is very good, because you can go in, you put Momentous singled out on a 1, which makes him awesome. You then have the 2 dice on your next attack if you give him 2 influence, or maybe even just the Momentous singled out is good enough because +2 attack is really good. But then, like, you also have this ability to reposition a lot of models, which I found out that pushes are probably one of the strongest things in the game, and are probably underutilized, especially by me. Like when I first got into the game, I was like, pushes are okay, but like, you know, dodges is how you get around people, and you do all these cool ability plays. And, you know, very much the same way I kind of won the tournament was I was like, okay, like I get someone into range and I take someone that normally has a hard time getting into range or still being on. And the key to unlocking him, which is rage, is 2-inch pushes from Ghast. And it's on an early playbook result. So a lot of times it's like you expect the knockdown, but really it's like, no, I'm going to push you so that rage can go do work. And the rage comes in and grinds you up. Or you engage rage and you're like, okay, rage is turned off. And then Ghast comes in and is like, get off rage. You don't need to be here. And then rage is like, furious charge, 4 attacks, infinite momentum, yay. Like that kind of stuff. Like pushes are so good.
Really good. Yeah. If you want to learn that the easy way, you play Hammer.
Yeah, right. Hammer's a great introduction to the pushes.
Like, you want to learn how good pushes are, play this guy for a couple games, and then you'll realize how good pushes are.
So I got my dream play the other night. So I'm sitting in that. I'm playing the Brewers Butchers game, and I have Stave, and I have this scenario where it's like Stave, like Gutter's engaged with Flay, but Gutter's engaged by so many people that Gutter can't really like she's like at 3 dice essentially. She's surrounded by Butcher players, so she's not going to be able to like Scything Blow or do anything about it. And then I have Friday off in a wing, like who just scored a goal, and I put 4 influence on each of those players, and he's surrounding me. He puts down his influence. He loads up Filet and all that stuff, and they're all kind of bunched around. So they're all kind of bunched around Gutter. So activate Stave. He walks up to Shank. Momentous knocks him down, and then Momentous pushes him into the rest of the butchers that are clumped around Gutter. Then I lob barrel between Gutter and Filet, who has full influence. Bounce Gutter towards me, knocked down. Bounce Filet away, which I bonus time off of one of the momentum I got, and I keep a momentum for Gutter for the next turn. Knock Princess, Meat Hook, and Shank down, and push them so they're in a clump. So then he has 4... basically a bunch of knockdown players that can't do anything if he stands them up because he has no momentum. And he has Boiler off with 4 influence in the ball. So he's like, okay, now I activate Boiler. And then momentum goes out. Gutter stands up, walks over, Scything Blows, kills 2 players, puts Filet at 3 health and Princess at 1 health, and was pretty much the game. Like, because they were all knocked down. So she just kind of went over there and was like, oh, 3 pluses to hit? Don't mind if I do. But yeah, that was the dream play of Stave, and why I love Stave so much. Because his putting influence on him is never a bad thing. His only downside is just he's really easy to hit. So he's the catalyst for any kind of character play, flurry, especially with freaking Filet. It's her blood explosion ability or whatever the heck it's called. Yeah. He's bad for that cases. Otherwise, as a first activation, I actually put him on par, just slightly below Silence as one of the best first activations in the game. If he can walk up and melee someone similarly, because that barrel is so good. And if you're able to go and have knockdowns on one, and they're momentous, then you can. And he has a momentous push. It's you just generate the momentum easily, kind of like Silence does, and then instead of tucked and shutting out people, you knock down multiple people and you kind of turn them off as early activations. Essentially, I essentially shut out 4 Butcher players with Stave is essentially what happened. I was you all lost 1 defense and you're shut out. Have fun. That's essentially what happened. And then it's just oh, okay. So he has a lot. He's pretty strong.
What do you think about taking Fangtooth in a Butcher's lineup?
Can they take Fangtooth?
I believe so. I believe they can take Fangtooth. I kind of want to make the all beef lineup.
Oh, you mean Brewers? You mean Brewers?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yes, yes. I think the all beef lineup, it would be so. So I was basically running the all beef lineup. Well, minus the avarice or the fangtooth. But I did have. So my team was Stave, Esther's Mash, Gutter, Friday Scum, and I was actually really excited to run Gutter in Brewers because I had never done it before. But I was like, this is the best team for her because I have a captain that doesn't need any influence, and so she can always just have 4, and everybody else just kind of enables her to do what she does. And on the backside of it, like I actually have a really good scoring team. Between Friday and Mash, so I was just like, this is awesome. Like this team seems fun, and it worked out. But I think that the all beef team is just fun for the fact that like it's like if you layer the stuff correctly, it's just like so hard to get through. The downside is it's hard to win momentum wars, and in some cases you lack damage potential because like Stave doesn't do a lot of damage. He's like a lot of the big characters are controlling models, not killing models. So the trouble there comes in finding a way to kill people with that team if they have like a lot of high defense people that even when you knock them down, it's like a little bit hard to get on masking off or something. And you don't have a lot of reach in that kind of team either. But it's a ton of fun, I'm sure. I was tempted. I got the glimpse of it the other night just with those 3, and I was like, this is awesome. And it looks awesome on the table. Because they're all awesome models.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like 40K. Anybody played 40K and you played like the all Carnifex list with all the giant, bugs. Like, that's what it feels like. Is you're running all the Carnifexes and they're just like, gosh dang it. It's like if they want to play a takeout game, it's just like such a long process.
Mm-hmm. That's funny.
And Esther's is, I think the thing I like about Esther's compared to Scalpel is Scalpel can actually die. Like Esther's is so hard to actually have die. Like between Gutless Mass and like just kind of her abilities, like she's actually pretty hard to get to and actually put her away. Unless like things really fall apart, but I find she's like an awesome turn 1 player. Because that's like when she gets most of her influence, and she gets to basically do the blasted earth and fire. But yeah, I can't say how much I've enjoyed playing her in the limited amount I have. And I've actually had a lot of fun playing other factions besides Morticians lately. I've only played like Scalpel is pretty much all the Morticians play. I haven't touched Abyss since the tournament.
What would you say is your number 2 team outside of Morticians?
That's a toughie. I'd say I'm probably. I'd say probably Butchers is my second favorite team, and probably the one that like I would take to a tournament. I think Brewers is actually pretty close to that. After I've kind of played them a little bit more, I'm starting to fall in love with them when originally it wasn't my favorite team at all. But I think if I was going to talk about like what team I'm actually like stupid annoying don't want to play me, it's probably Fish. Like,
sure.
My fish are very, very efficient, and I'm very good at spacing them in such a way that even if you want to play the takeout game, it's very, very hard. I don't know. I'd be interested to play against Morticians with them yet because I haven't got a chance. Because usually when I play Morticians, the team I want to play at least is Fishermen. Just because Morticians in generally aren't going to win a straight up beat fest, and they're not going to win a straight up shoot fest. And Fishermen are the people that can put them on the back heel where they don't have a choice. It's like kind of happening and they just kind of delaying. So yeah, I think my fish are pretty good. If whenever I'm playing a game and I just like I want to get in a quick game, I just play Fishermen because they're like the best early game team. Pretty much.
That makes sense. Okay. Well, it is 11:15. I've got to prepare a bunch of terrain for tomorrow to sell. managed to do all the little fleshy tones on these. I'm not sure about Casket here. I might actually mix some grays in. He looks a little too human right now, so I don't know. I might. He looks a little too vibrant. Look a little more gray, but
yeah, a little more. Yeah.
When I paint in the rest of their outfits with this with kind of that weird blue color, maybe it'll pop, and then I'll figure out what direction I want to go. So
cool.
But yeah, pretty fun so far. This is a fun guild to paint. These I don't know. I may have to once I put these on eBay. I may have to go pick up another team like this because that was fun. Well, it's fun so far painting them. So
yeah.
Anyway, any final thoughts here before we shut down?
Playgraves 2016 and a hashtag nerf Obulus gently.
Be kind to Obulus. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for hopping on. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.